All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back once again with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, powered, as always, by our friends over at PrizePicks. Also today, powered by Omaha Steaks, as well as Ethos, some of the best life insurance out there. And better yet, powered by the Patriots' next opponent. They have the Houston Texans officially, Taylor. We know who the Pats will play. We did a late night crossover with Brian and Alex last night for an instant reaction to this Houston Texans team and what that all means. So we will dive into who exactly this team is, what to know about them, and how much of a challenge this can be for the Patriots next weekend. But first, we do want to put a quick bow on the Chargers game from last weekend. As we know, obviously, Patriots took down the LA Chargers 16-3 last weekend and did so in a defensive dominated performance. Drake May was hot and cold. As we know, we broke that down yesterday. But a couple quick notes on that one that Taylor was able to put together. Spoke to Mike Vrabel about it a little bit yesterday about their usage of 22 personnel and whatnot, those heavier groupings, and how they were able to have success with that. So I want to break that down. Want to break down how Marcus Jones and the Patriots defense were able to keep Ladd McConkey in check. And also taking a look at that Patriots pass rush that, the Milton Williams play at the end. If you haven't already saw it, essentially won the game for the Patriots. We're going to do all that. Then I said we'll get into the Texans, then we'll wrap this thing up. Before we get into it, Taylor, sleeping on it one more night. I know I actually was listening to 98.5 earlier this afternoon. They played our clip of you reacting to this Houston team and how they are the scariest opponent yet. So have you come off of that a little bit? Or are you still wary on it? We'll get into a little bit more about what they do offensively, defensively, whatever. But coming up on 24 hours later, thoughts on this Texans matchup as a whole?
I mean, I don't feel a whole lot better. I will say, after looking at kind of the 10,000-foot view, I definitely think there will be some matchups the Patriots can exploit. In this offense, really, when you look at the numbers, they really are pretty average and below average in a lot of places. Just from that kind of overview, I don't see a lot of places where they excel, which has kind of been the story for the Patriots defense, and they've been able to capitalize against offenses like that. And I also think the Patriots are still going to be able to make more big plays than the Texans will. And I trust Josh McDaniels not to let Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson completely wreck the game. Like you even saw last night with the Steelers, where at times they're leaving these guys on islands in some key plays, and you absolutely can't let that happen. And if Josh McDaniels does, we also know that Drake May, as long as he doesn't have the brain farts he did last week, which was a blip on the radar, relative to what we've seen from him recently. But as long as he's smart about getting rid of the football on time, I do think that the Patriots can do a better job against that pass rush than what we've seen. And I also think Drake May has done a pretty good job of picking his spots. So it's still a winnable matchup. It's not like this is one where I'm saying, can't beat the Texans defense. I don't think that's the case, but that doesn't change the fact that this is an extremely talented unit that can fly around. Just watching their run defense, man, the way that they fly from the backside of a lot of plays in the ground game is just very intimidating to watch. So no easy task, absolutely, but I do feel like there will be some ways that the Patriots will be able to have success, especially because they have the home field advantage.
Yeah, kind of like how the Patriots have really started to, they have all season, but they've played with such an identity, especially on defense. One of the things that you always notice about them is they always rally to the ball regardless of, the time, the situation, and what have you. And I saw that a little bit with that Texans team last night where, they get there fast. They run through their tackles. They don't F around, for lack of a better term, on defense. They know how they win. They know how they want to win, and they get it done. And you saw that perfectly last night. Resulting in a Mike Tomlin stepping away as well. Little breaking NFL news there. Mike Tomlin done in Pittsburgh after 19 seasons. So
Zach Taylor is the king of the North, which is
crazy, bro.
Insane.
The fact that he's the one left over in that division is incredible. It wouldn't have shocked me, frankly, if all four were gone at the end of this year. But we know how the Bengals, operate and work over there. So Zach Taylor gets another chance. The other three, unfortunately, do not. We'll get in again, like I said, to these Texans in a little bit, but move back a little bit more. Take a look at what the Patriots were able to do and do well on Sunday against the Chargers, and how they could potentially use this as well in this upcoming matchup against the Houston Texans. Now, the first thing Taylor and I wanted to hit on was the Patriots' use of 22 personnel on offense. They found some success in that. I know we broke that down a little bit yesterday with the Drake May film, but Taylor dove into the numbers a little bit more and took a look at it. Even asked Mike Vrabel about why their downfield success came in the passing game from those heavier groupings. Vrabel was saying basically that they rush, they've had a good front. So you have to protect more in order to get those downfield shots. If you want to add anything onto that, Taylor, as well, go for it. But just what did you see from them using these heavier groupings, how they were able to have success in it? And do you see that being a key cog in their offensive machine, for lack of a better term, moving forward against Houston and then also throughout the playoffs?
Yeah, I do think they're still going to want to play around with a lot of those base personnel groupings to create some disadvantages for the defense, especially for Stephon Diggs. Now, we were expecting them to use a lot of jumbo because that's what they've been doing in recent weeks. And we've seen a lot of Thayer Munford as that jumbo tight end, and you had Ben Brown back in the lineup. So it seemed like with the offensive line in the healthiest state that it had been in a while, we could see even more. It was the exact opposite, which was, I don't know how surprised the Chargers were necessarily, but I certainly wasn't expecting it. And the only times they actually did use those 6 offensive line looks, it was actually to pass. And the times they used it to run was when they were being kind of tricky, like the speed option, where it was a similar formation to the Wildcat look they used the week before where Drake May split out. That time he goes outside, fakes the pitch to Ramondre, which, looking back on it, he actually probably should have pitched that ball because Khalil Mack wasn't really prepared to take either one of those, and he had to make one safety miss Ramondre if he'd gotten that to potentially take it to the house. So,
the one option rule I was always taught as a quarterback. Now, it's different when you're Drake May or Lamar Jackson or someone who can run the lights out, but as someone who wasn't known for their speed, if it's even questionable, you give it to the better player. You pitch it to the faster guy. And I know Drake May wanted to make the play, and I get it, and he did, and it was awesome. But I'm with you. And looking back, it is unfortunate that it was so cool for him to do the fake pitch and get there. But you're right. If it's iffy, if it's 50-50 and you don't know, get it out to the better athlete, and he'll make somebody else miss instead of yourself. But hey.
Right. Maybe next time around, he'll learn from his mistake. But so they rarely use jumbo. When they did, it was to get downfield. But this time in this game plan, they leaned more on 2 back sets that also had 2 tight ends. So this game, Jack Westover was the second most snaps he had played in a game. And for Austin Hooper, it was his second most as well. So they were a huge part of this game plan. And they used different looks. So even though they were leaning on these groupings, you'd think, okay, 2 tight ends and 2 running backs. With the fullback, you're probably expecting they're just going to hammer it up the middle like they usually do with their blast runs. And they did. There was still a lot of that just I formation. Hunter Henry kind of more as a Z. They've been using that a lot late in the year with those jumbo sets. But instead of Thayer Munford as the inline tight end, it was Austin Hooper, who did a pretty solid job in the blocking game. But they mixed it up. They had some outside zone runs. There was one that Travion took for a really big gain off the left side. And they also used just single back. We talked about it on the post-game show, but they tried leak again, which is where you have Austin Hooper acting like he's just going to go shallow across the field. Then he takes off vertically. They ran it 2 plays in a row from the same look. The first time, the Texans came out in a 2-deep look and they actually checked to a run. The next play they tried it was a single high look, and they were like, all right, we like this a lot better. Unfortunately, Jerwin James is a freak, and he was able to get on top of it. But that was a different look that the defense had to prepare for, and they actually did it from the shotgun. So sometimes they would have Jack Westover and Austin Hooper as the guys to the left, with Stephon Diggs as the number 3 inside to get him matched up on linebackers. But they also had Hunter Henry as like an isolated receiver to the backside, and Drake May tried him on a couple hole shots, hit one of them, didn't hit the other one. So the fact that we're able to do so much out of a pretty unconventional personnel grouping is a massive advantage, something that probably threw a little bit of a wrench in the Chargers defensive game plan, something that they had to adjust to. And I'm going to dive deeper into the Houston personnel and matchup advantages potentially a little bit later in the week. But given that this is a defense that is so good in the pass rush department and will sometimes have 5 down linemen and rush 5 guys at a time, you could try to manipulate those looks and get yourself some horizontal opportunities. So those 22 personnel groupings, again, it was different from what the Patriots have been doing, getting away from those 6-0 line looks. Maybe they switch it up again to continue to keep defenses on their toes, but it was just another kind of fun way that Josh McDaniel shows that he can give you different base kind of packages week to week, but still get to their core concepts. Now, the Chargers did a great job defending them. Like on one of the juke routes, they would drop a defensive tackle. One time, Stephon Diggs adjusted, got behind him. The second time, the defensive tackle went back and just chucked Stephon Diggs. So It's going to be a fun chess match again, but it's going to be fun to see what type of personnel groupings they'll break out this week to try to put the Texans on the back foot.
And I know I had mentioned whether it was post game or yesterday, I can't remember. It's it all blurs at this point in the year. But the chess match of Josh McDaniels and also their ability to have players that can really be one position but do everything, right? I mean, you see, and I always go back to this. This personnel game that Josh plays and running the same stuff or running the same concepts out of different groupings. And you talk about, like Rex Burkhead, right? The split out wide receiver in Super Bowl 53 and how that was able to kind of toil with what LA did or whatever. And Pats did it the other night with Jack Westover, same thing. He catches a hitch route and it just allows you to get a better jump, if you will, on what the defense is doing. And still it's coaching, but it's also the players being able to adjust and know and do the right thing. And whenever their number is called, whatever circumstance or situation, they'll be able to get it done and be able to have success in these different types of things. So again, you saw that on
one other quick thing for the Texans, especially because they're a kind of defense that a lot of the time they just play nickel. So they don't play a ton of base groupings. That usually means that their playbook is going to be smaller. Makes them more predictable.
Totally.
So another reason that could be advantageous, like they do this all the time against the Bills, who also play a lot of nickel. If you force that third linebacker, who again, I still need to watch the tape, but if you have that third linebacker who's not very comfortable in coverage or outside of Azeez Al-Shaair, he's fantastic. But if you want to target some of those other guys, then that's how you create those kind of opportunities.
Totally. Want to get into what the Patriots did defensively against the Chargers, how they were able to stifle them, and also effectively get Greg Roman fired. I don't know if you saw that today as well. Greg Roman out in LA. Patriots and Texans getting coaches out the building. So another, again, incredible matchup coming. So I want to talk about what the Pats did on defense here. But first, before we do, got to tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. If I can find, there's my B-roll. Prize Picks. This episode and every episode of Patriots Daily is powered by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With the high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite basketball action almost every night, the action never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. They have a new feature alert. It is called Early Payouts. So if your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Obviously, Patriots versus Texans this weekend coming up. A ton of picks to be had in that one. Players galore. Drake May, CJ Stroud. We'll see about Nico Collins. But Christian Kirk had a big night last night, hit a lot of his mores on the Prize Picks app. So if you want to get in on that action this weekend, all you got to do is download the Prize Picks app, create an account, and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, moving on to what the Patriots did defensively against LA. Obviously, we know the blanket statement, held him to 3 points, got after Justin Herbert, put him under siege. But how they did it, is what we're going to break down here right now. And mainly Taylor wants to break down. We want to break down Ladd McConkey versus the New England secondary. He was basically manned up by Marcus Jones, and they were able to keep him at bay. So how did they do it, Taylor? What did you see? And also, again, moving it forward into the Texans conversation, probably no Nico Collins with the concussion. So a lot of similar, style receivers to a Ladd McConkey, specifically in Christian Kirk. How can they replicate it against this Houston team?
Yeah, I think Kirk may be the most dynamic guy that they have in their receiving core this weekend. So naturally figure Ladd McConkey. It's kind of a similar situation to the Chargers where they do have talented outside receivers, especially like Quentin Johnston, an explosive outside receiver. Jaden Higgins isn't quite as explosive. He's more of a big-bodied guy, but still pretty dynamic young player on the outside. But they don't really scare you. If you're worried about somebody, it's going to be those slot receivers. Now, with Ladd McConkey being the prime threat for the Chargers, I wasn't sure before the game if maybe they'd have a specific plan to take him out, and they really didn't, to be honest. Now, Marcus Jones was against him in man coverage on all but one of the snaps where the Patriots did play man coverage. It was one where Ladd McConkey was lined up outside. I think he drew Carlton Davis. But there was also a snap where McConkey was outside and Marcus Jones was too. So I wonder if they did have the flexibility to have him shadow in certain packages. But The biggest way that McConkey had success, even when he wasn't targeted, was on scramble drills. There was one against Marcus Jones. The only pass that he did catch against man coverage was one where he slipped at the top of the route, so Marcus Jones was on top of it, but was able to break outside and get a pretty big conversion. There was also one where he could have scored a touchdown against zone coverage, but Justin Herbert scrambled and missed him. And I also want to say a big part of the reason that Ladd McConkey wasn't more productive was because Justin Herbert just was not seeing the field very well. He was panicky at some points where he was really dramatic under pressure in terms of how he was responding, sometimes like making jarring moves rather than just moving in the pocket, staying under control, and giving himself the opportunity to stay ready to throw. So some of Ladd McConkey not being productive was not on him. He did have his opportunities. He also was able to get between Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones at some points in zone coverage. There was one where he threw short against play action. I thought McConkey had some space on a sail route. Then there was that vertical route where they got Gonzalez out of the picture by using a post. Marcus Jones had to kind of match the coverage and follow. If Justin Herbert leads Ladd McConkey, again, that might be a touchdown. Great job by Marcus Jones taking advantage of the underthrow and breaking it up. But again, those kinds of opportunities. Christian Kirk is a similarly explosive kind of player. Obviously, he's no Ladd McConkey. And Marcus Jones probably has the athleticism advantage. But again, in some of those match style zone coverages, maybe the Texans look at that tape and say, all right, let's try that ourselves and see if it doesn't work out for us. So those are the big ones. Also, sometimes where the Patriots were playing their quarters coverage where they were trying to create more brackety style looks. There were some times where Ladd McConkey got matched up against Craig Woodson. I don't know. If I see that and I'm the Texans, I'm trying to find some way to create a mismatch like that and try to take the top off. I don't know. I feel like teams don't really test the Patriots quarter coverages as much as they probably could. And the Texans, we know, will do that if they get the opportunity. So Ladd McConkey was not a very productive day for him, but looking at the tape, he had opportunities that the Chargers just didn't always take advantage of. So again, man-to-man, I like Marcus Jones on Christian Kirk, but in those zone coverages, the Patriots are going to have to make sure they know where he is, but not just him, because C.J. Stroud, he'll spread the ball. You know, I don't want to say that Christian Kirk is the only guy you got to worry about, but looking at how they handled Ladd, I do think you're going to see more of Marcus Jones on that matchup. And on the outside, I wouldn't be surprised if they just put Christian Gonzalez on one end and Carlton Davis on the other like they typically tend to do.
Definitely and I know we'll get into it more when we do Houston's offense, but definitely an interesting matchup and how they do it considering the Nico Collins concussion, the fact that the game was on a Monday. Gonzo might have a better inside track to get back with the protocol. So we'll see, but that'll definitely be a massive storyline here as the week goes on to see how the Patriots will potentially attack this wide receiver core, even though they are definitely deeper, but Collins is 100% their main man.
And also just do want to acknowledge the fact the Patriots released Dearness Johnson from the roster, and they released Sebastian Gutierrez from the practice squad. It does open the door for potentially Alex Austin to come back. He's been trying to get back from a wrist injury off of injured reserve. Could also be for Terrell Jennings. He's been on injured reserve with a concussion. But as we talk about Christian Gonzalez's health, whether or not he's going to play, the next man up would likely be Charles Woods. He had already jumped Alex Austin before the injury, but at least it could potentially give them some more depth if Gonzalez isn't able to go.
Totally. Definitely one to watch. And you mentioned attacking that, the quarters coverage and teams not taking shots against the Pats, frankly. And you mentioned it, but CJ Stroud did exactly that against the Chargers in their game a couple weeks ago, where it felt like they were going to kind of try and, potentially keep them honed in. And Stroud said, F it basically, and attacked that deep and had a couple deep touchdowns in that game. So it definitely could be susceptible to that. But what will potentially stop them is a Patriots pass rush that can get after CJ Stroud. And they did that and more against Herbert on Sunday night. You just mentioned that he was under siege, was under duress, looked lost back there, frankly, especially in the second half. They wound up taking Herbert down to the ground 6 times. And it really, affected him. I thought early on Herbert was calmer, cooler in the pocket, taking what they gave him a little bit more, was able to kind of sit back there, find a lane to run or just dump one off and get a good gainer. Towards the second half of that game, that was all lost and gone. And they were, just in his face all night long. What did you see? How did they do it? Milton Williams specifically, obviously I mentioned it earlier, but won that game for them at the end of the game. With the sack on Herbert, was able to get through that Chargers offensive line. Different animal, different breed here with the Texans. But do you see the Patriots pass rush being a strength once again against Houston? And if so, why, based on what you saw against the Chargers?
Yeah, so I continue to be kind of disappointed by the traditional pass rush for the Patriots, like on early downs, especially on the edges. Now the Chargers did try to give their tackles some help, and there weren't a whole lot of times that there were true one-on-one matchups. But when the Patriots did get obvious passing situations, whether it was a 2-minute drill, third down, or just drives where the Chargers needed points quickly, that was where the Patriots turned it on, and that was where their sacks and their hits actually came from. And when you talk about the Texans passing game, I'll get more into it later. They want to get the ball out fast, and it's a big reason that their pressure rate is actually pretty low this season. So you're going to want to get them off schedule, because if you can, it's going to be a huge advantage for that interior defensive line. Milton Williams showing out in his return on his first sack. Great bull rush to create that quick pressure and get to Justin Herbert. The other one, the game sealer, gets through 2 blockers in route to Justin Herbert, and he actually drew 2 blockers, both the left guard and the running back who was in blitz pickup, that opened up the door for Anthony Jennings to get his sack. So Milton Williams getting it done both in one-on-one situations and helping other guys in line games. Christian Barmore, he was trying to stunt on a 3-man game to free up Christian Ellis and wound up just putting the entire pocket in Justin Herbert's lap. Also, one when he was out as a defensive end in a 3-man rush, which obviously you really like when your big defensive tackle is able to get some pressure there. Now, they do need to be careful because C.J. Stroud is more of a pocket passer, but he can run. And in those packages where they have Christian Barmore on the outside, it can compromise your ability to keep the quarterbacks in the pocket. Now, Christian Ellis did a fantastic job as a spy and really was able to keep Justin Herbert from making bigger plays or just putting duress on him so that he couldn't get throws off cleanly. But the defensive tackles had a massive impact in this game. Corey Durden he had like 3 big pressures in the fourth quarter alone. He had one where he threw a guy to the ground. He had a couple hits on Justin Herbert kind of late. So the interior defensive line looked good. And really, K'Lavon Chaisson, more opportunistic than anything else. It wasn't a great game from him in terms of individual wins, but like we've said throughout the season, even if he didn't get in those quick pressures, he still is creating big plays when given the opportunity. And then their scheme pressures. Robert Spillane had 2 where they didn't show that they were in 0, but then they finally fired forward when they were in the red zone and Spillane got through. 2 key pressures for him, one that led to a bad throw from Justin Herbert that could have been a touchdown. Keenan Allen did get separation against Christian Gonzalez. Herbert wound up overthrowing it. And Marcus Jones had his second, technically wasn't a sack. Well, it was a fumble and then it was recovered, but whatever. Got to the quarterback for the second time in 2 weeks. And another impressive rep 2 weeks ago was able to actually beat a guard for a sack. And then last week against the Chargers, able to knock the ball loose from Justin Herbert. So the pass rush, unfortunately, really does need to rely on knowing the pass is coming and being able to pin their ears back. But the Texans don't run the ball very well. So if you can get behind the line of scrimmage, create some negative plays, and then get yourself in advantageous situations, I think this is a game where the Texans could have a very hard time moving the football consistently, just in my kind of early assessment of what their offense looks like compared to the Patriots last week.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Texans there, what they may be able to do and not do against this Patriots team, because we're going to actually take a 1,000-foot view of what this Texans team does, what they mean, what challenges they can face again, what challenges they can prevent. Jesus, why can't I talk right now? What challenges they can present for the Patriots and vice versa. But before we get to that, Taylor, I do have to tell our friends about our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Because there it is. Oh, there's the burger right on screen. And it is the new year. We are starting the year stronger and easier and more deliciously with premium portion proteins from Omaha Steaks. Stay satisfied, get energy, and fuel your routine with premium prepackaged protein delivered to your door from Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks got me and my family through the holidays, and now they are getting us rip-roaring and ready to go for the new year. The best steaks, the best sides, the best desserts, all of it straight to your door from Omaha Steaks. They've been America's original butcher since 1917 and a family-owned company for over 100 years with expertise in the meat industry. So let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com and get an extra $35 off with promo code PATRIOTS at checkout. That's OMAHA steaks.com. Promo code PATRIOTS. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, Taylor, let's talk about this Texans team now. Putting the Chargers away, good stuff there. We saw what they did well. We saw what they didn't. On to the next opponent. It is the Texans. Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. And for those of you, just before we get into the 1,000-foot view, I'll give you the 30,000-foot view of what this Texans team is. 10 straight wins. They have a stifling defense, as we know. They allowed the fewest yards per game in the NFL in the regular season at 277.2. They allowed the second fewest points per game at 17.4. Two elite edge defenders in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Obviously, a solid secondary as well, the pair in the back end. And then offensively, we'll get into that right now. But C.J. Stroud, been one of the top half of the league quarterbacks, I would say, since his rookie year. Really came on strong. Has sort of petered out a bit over the last couple seasons. But him and D'Amico Ryans as a pairing have been to the divisional round every single season. This is their third straight time being here. They've gone to the playoffs 3 times. They've won a playoff game every time. So there is some potential here with this Houston team. They haven't fully hit their stride just yet, but chance they do so on Sunday against the Patriots. So I know the defense is the big talk of the town for this Houston team, but let's talk about the offense first, Taylor. What do you see schematically from these guys? What have you seen from their pass game? What have you seen from their run game? And how could it potentially be a problem for the Patriots? Because again, I mentioned it. Stroud's been solid to start his career. Hasn't been the best over the last couple seasons, and even last night, that they struggled a bit against that Pittsburgh team. But he's also gotten to this point in the playoffs a couple times now. They've went into Arrowhead a couple times, and Stroud has played well. So what is it about this offense that you like, that you don't like, and what have they shown so far? What have they shown this season?
So I haven't watched a ton of their tape. Really, what I kind of started to dive into is more of just the big picture, like how effective are they at stopping things, how good are they in certain situations. Sure. So that's kind of what I'll dive into, and I'm glad we start with the Texans offense because it's kind of boring in terms of how effective they are, because they haven't been very effective. They are bottom 10 in yards per play, bottom 10 in touchdowns, bottom 10 in EPA per rush, and they do allow one of the lower pressure rates in the league. But again, in terms of their offensive efficiency, they're not great. They don't score very much. They don't move the ball particularly well or consistently. They do protect the ball pretty well, though. I do want to give them credit there. They have their second, they rank second in the NFL in giveaways in a positive way. So they really don't do that very often. They only have 3 fumbles lost. That's tied for the fewest in the NFL. And they only have 9 interceptions. That's tied for the 9th fewest. Now, C.J. Stroud is higher up in turnover-worthy play rate, so it's not necessarily indicative of the interceptions of how well he's protected the ball consistently, but when you do look at their giveaway numbers, they do rank pretty well in the league. Although they had an interception and they lost 2 fumbles in the wild card round against the Steelers, so maybe something the Patriots can take from that. Situationally, the Texans have faced the 5th most third downs in the NFL, and they have the 10th lowest conversion rate. So, as we said earlier, if the Patriots can get them into some long yardage situations and get them into third down, they should have a decent ability to get them off the field. The Chargers, again, different situation. The Texans have a better offensive line, but the Chargers could not stay on the field for most of their third downs. Also, Texans, very heavily penalized team on both sides of the ball, especially on first downs. Defensively, they're very aggressive. What that leads to is them getting caught off sides at times, also making illegal contact, and defensive pass interference penalties have kind of been the story for them. And the offense has been penalized for some holding calls quite a bit. So maybe some hidden yardage there. The Patriots have been very good with penalties. I think they're bottom 10 offensively and defensively when it comes to penalties. So that could be a potential advantage the Patriots could try in some of those important situations. Maybe you try some dummy counts, things like that. Just something to look out for there. Looking at the passing offense specifically, kind of looking a little bit more at C.J. Stroud. Average time to throw, 2.8 seconds. That's the 11th fastest in the NFL. So not the fastest, but a big reason that it's kind of hard to get to him. And he also does a good job avoiding sacks when he is pressured, only gets sacked at the 9th lowest rate when he's under duress. And then when you look at big time throws and turnover-worthy plays, so looking at, okay, how often is he trying to really go for these home run balls and really trying to take the top off, and how often is he putting the ball in harm's way, they happen at about the same rate. His big-time throw rate's about 3.7%. That's among the lowest in the NFL. And his turnover-worthy play rate is one of the higher ones. It's only 0.6% of a difference. So that's a pretty advantageous situation potentially for the Patriots on the back end. And also looking at adjusted completion rate, this is going to be one I'm interested to look deeper into. 3rd lowest in the NFL. So not very efficient when it comes to connecting with his receivers. Going to be interesting to see why that is. And then looking at the run game, they run inside at about the 5th highest rate in the NFL. A lot of duo, a lot of draw plays, and a lot of quarterback sneaks actually is something they do a lot with both CJ Stroud and with their tight ends as well. So this is a downhill run scheme. Going to mean if Kyrus Tonga can be back for you, that could be massive. Now, they were pretty solid last week, obviously, but again, better offensive line you're going to get against the Texans. Also, their success rate running the ball is the 2nd lowest in the NFL, including the regular and postseason. They get stuffed at one of the highest rates in the league, and they don't get a whole lot of yards after contact. Now, Nick Chubb is still a very savvy back, and if you don't bring it, he's obviously going to run through. But we know the Patriots have been very sound tacklers. So just looking at this early on, if Kyrus Tonga comes back, I think the Patriots could really put this run game in a body bag and make the Texans pretty predictable. Now, defense for the Texans, very different story.
Let me cut you off.
Oh yeah, no,
you're fine. I wanna split offense and defense because I do have to get I gotta get a third ad read in here. I'll let you take a sip of water. No, you're fine. I'll let you take a sip of water and take a deep breath. But also, kind of I kind of took the first couple minutes to kind of laud CJ Stroud because I've been a fan of his. But those numbers are a little eye popping, and I don't know if it's a Nick Haley thing, an offensive thing. I feel like this is his 2nd or 3rd offensive coordinator in the last couple of years. I wonder what that's like and why, or I guess if Stroud or Haley are the right fit for each other. I wonder about that. And too, like, I feel like the McDaniels and Patriots and even McVay, where Haley was last year, they're very sound and they try not to make mistakes and they want to stay ahead of the chain. So the fact that they're penalized early in their in their drive so much is, first of all, concerning for them, but uncharacteristic to the kind of offense that he likes to run. So definitely.
And there's one other thing I need to mention. This could be a potential battle of the big boys as well. We know the Patriots, not so much last week, but they have in recent weeks liked to go to their 6-0 line packages. No one's done that more than the Texans, which is kind of makes it even worse that the run game has been so bad. Right. They use 6 offensive linemen at about a 19% clip. That's the highest rate in the NFL. And they line up under center a lot. So the numbers would make you think that they're a more effective downhill run scheme than they are, but they aren't. But again, those are some things that being under center makes you less predictable. But again, you're not running a bunch of like power or counter when you're pulling guys. It's not a lot of tosses. It really is. They're just trying to run straight at you with their big bodies. So look out for the Patriots to potentially have to run a lot of their base personnel. Maybe that creates some advantages for the Texans as well.
100%. All right. We will get into this daunting defense in a second. But first, one last ad read for you guys. It's our friends over at Ethos. Is our video playing? Come on. Come on. We need B-roll. There it is. As well as my wife in this house, carry a lot of responsibility. If something happened to me, her, our dog, anyone here, there would be a lot of consequences, like rent payments, light bills, everyday bills. All of it comes kind of crashing down on you. And thinking about that, it used to be very overwhelming, but taking steps to protect my family financially has completely changed that. And that's why I got life insurance through Ethos. They make getting life insurance fast, easy, and it is 100% online. You can get a quote in just seconds, apply in minutes, and you can even get same-day coverage. They don't require a medical exam either. You just answer a few simple health questions, and you can wind up with over $3 million in coverage. Some policies are also just as low as $30 a month. And as of this past March, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. They also have 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. So protect your family with life insurance with Ethos today. Go to ethos.com/all32. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get a free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/all32. That is ethos.com/all32. ethos.com/all32. Application times and rates may vary. A lot of reads there, a lot of Ethos and all 32. I said it all at once. But if you are in need of life insurance, if you think this is interesting to you, anyone in your family, head over there. All 32. That's our guy, Mike Giardi, on the show, giving him some help with this one here. So if you are in need of it, head over there. Give Mike a shout there with the all 32. Go to ethos.com/all32 if you're interested. And like you said, you can get a free quote there if you need it. All right, Taylor, let's wrap up here with this Texans' daunting defense. I previewed it a little bit in the intro, gave the basic high-level numbers. Incredibly low points per game, the lowest yards per game. They've held offenses in check, and they obviously have those two stud edge rushers in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. But diving a little further, I know you haven't watched it 100%, and like you said with the offense, but just taking a look at what you've seen, their tendencies, what have you, what has made them so dominant this year? And frankly, how nervous should the Patriots be going up against this unit?
I mean, this pass defense is ridiculous. They allow the fewest EPA per play, overall, but specifically against the pass, they do as well. They had 2 defensive touchdowns just last night. So we already know that they can take the ball away. They're the 3rd most takeaways in the league, tied for the 3rd most interceptions, and tied for the 4th most forced fumble recoveries. So there's some defenses where they're a little bit better in one area than the other. Not these Texans. We already know they can fly around, and clearly they practice getting the ball away from opponents because they do it at a very high clip. Also, just like their defense, they actually do get penalized pretty often on defense. So another one of those little hidden yardage things, and kind of a strength-on-strength battle. The Patriots' 3rd downs, the Texans are very good, and so are the Patriots. But the Texans are also one of the best 4th down defenses. They only allow opponents to convert on 47.6% of their attempts. The Patriots are in like the 70% conversion rate. So I know 4th downs have not been very generous to playoff teams, but if this is a close game, that can end up being a very big factor. And then schematically, they run a lot of 4-man fronts and a lot of their regular nickels. So that's where when people say they're a pretty vanilla defense and they do what they do, that's where you're going to see a lot of that. And if it's base personnel, they're going to have kind of a 4-3 scheme, but they usually like to have a 5-man presentation. So sometimes that means they'll walk down a linebacker. Sometimes it just means you have a 5th defensive lineman just so you can be a little bit more stout against the run. And clearly it's working because they don't give up very many yards against the run. And when it comes to their blitzing and stunt rate, again, people say they're vanilla, and they are in terms of like they don't disguise and do those kinds of things very often, but there are ways that they're aggressive if you look a little bit deeper. So if you look at run stunts, they use stunts at about the 5th highest rate. So a lot of the time we know they like to play split safeties, although they will also load the box at a pretty high rate as well. But a lot of the times they'll try to steal gaps by slanting one way and getting into the backfield to create penetration, which they do a phenomenal job of. That a lot of the time will stop the running back dead in their tracks and allows that backside pursuit to make plays. And then when it comes to their pass defense, it's not all Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson killing people off the edges. They actually do send 5- and 6-man blitzes for passes at some of the highest rates in the NFL. They will try to overload one side of the offense's protection and force quarterbacks to get the ball out quickly. So don't go into this thinking the Texans are just going to be running the same thing every single play. That's not really what my research shows. And that is also the case when you look at the back end of their defense. Now, they disguise at one of the lowest rates in the NFL. So a lot of the time what you see is what you'll get, but they will disguise every once in a while. Like one of the trickier ones and how you know that a defense is smart, and well, at least when they execute it at a high level, is disguising quarters, because not a lot of defenses even trust their defensive backs to do it. It requires one of your safeties to start near the line of scrimmage and then haul ass back there and stay in position and not get beat over the top or be in position to, bracket or take whatever route he has to. They will do that sometimes, but when you look at the coverages they tend to lean on, they play a lot of cover 3 seam, which means that slot defender, Jalen Petrie, if you send a vertical his way, he'll carry it up the field rather than just trying to kind of bump that guy and allow the cornerback on the outside to carry it. That's a type of match zone coverage that can create some vulnerabilities. I know Josh McDaniels is going to be looking for that. They also play, I don't know where, maybe I misheard. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's the Texans and they played so much cover 2 in Tampa 2. I could have sworn that people have been saying that all they do is play cover 2 in Tampa 2. That's not true. They actually play some of the least Tampa 2 and cover 2 in the NFL. Their primary coverage scheme is quarters and split field zones. So they'll either play like the Chargers, a lot of those 4 deep schemes that are more leverage coverages than they are specifically trying to keep a lid on the defense. But also what they'll do is they'll play cover 4 to one side, and cover 2 to the other, which is also something we saw at times from the Chargers, where you're going to try to, like if it's Kayshon Boutte or Kyle Williams on the outside, you'll actually try to jam them off the line, but have somebody deep to make sure that you can't get beat over the top. Which Drake May said, fine, you can do that, but I'm just going to throw it into the honey hole. So I mentioned it yesterday. That's going to be a fun little matchup to see how the Texans try to take away those hole shots, and if they just try to use coverages that don't allow Drake to do that quite as much. And the Texans will also play man coverage. They do that at the 13th highest rate in the NFL. To be honest, I'd like to see Demario Douglas on crossers the same way we did last year. That was one place the Patriots had a lot of success when the Texans in late downs just said, hey, we're going to go mano-a-mano and you can try to beat us. I feel like the Patriots are going to have better answers now that obviously different system, Drake and these guys have another year under their belt. I know Pop's been quiet, but that was the best game I think he's probably had in the past 2 years. So maybe some advantages will present themselves there. And finally, Texans run defense, also very good. They barely allow explosive runs. They stack the box more than I expected because of how many split field zones they play. 11th highest stacked box rate, and teams actually run inside on them at the highest rate in the NFL, which Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. No shit, Sherlock. That's probably going to happen quite a bit. See if the Patriots can have success. And yards before contact, the 5th fewest in the NFL. So another stat that shows you just how disruptive they are up front and how hard it is to get past the first level, much less get anything after that to try to get those explosive plays. So Texans defensive front is fantastic, and they have a little bit more diversity to their scheme than I anticipated going into this. But again, I think that because they like to play those split field zones, Drake May does a very good job against those types of coverages. So that'll be a fun chess match to watch on Sunday.
It's going to be tough. Hearing all that, looking at watching this Texans defense, this is definitely the side of the ball, the one to watch on Sunday. It's going to be their biggest challenge to date for sure. We'll see how they attack it. Interested to see how they attack it. Interested to hear what the Patriots have to say about how they'll, attack it and go after this Texans team. We haven't heard from them since they found out their opponent. We will hear from Mike Vrabel, Drake May, and everyone down in Foxborough tomorrow. So make sure to keep it here for coverage at Patriots practice throughout the rest of the week. Before we get out of here, Taylor, Patriots roster news. They have signed Miles Battle, Dearness Johnson, tackle Lawrence Metz, and wide receiver Trent Sherfield to the practice squad, and released defensive lineman Fabian Lovett and wide receiver Brandon Smith from the practice squad. So Johnson clears, comes back, could be now an elevation candidate since he's back on the practice squad once again. Miles Battle returns, and then Trent Sherfield, an interesting one who's kicked around the NFL for a couple years here. He has been signed to the practice squad, so we'll see what that means. But a couple roster transactions. Don't know if you have or don't have any thoughts on there before we get out of here. I would say Johnson's probably the big one, the running back room with, Terrell Jennings and maybe him versus Alex Austin and that whole thing that we talked about earlier. But
I had a feeling, that Dearness Johnson was going to be back. Miles Battle was another guy that I would have been surprised if they didn't bring him back, but nothing significant. But again, just keep on the radar that Alex Austin and Terrell Jennings are eligible to potentially get off of the injured reserve list at this point in the season.
Totally. All right, before we get out of here, one more thing. A couple of gifted Press memberships again in the chat.
The best.
I forget how that works, but shout out to Prolariat, and then actually a couple super chats from him as well. So thank you. Did Drake May really have a tomato juice audible? I don't know if I heard that one.
I didn't hear that. Did you? I cannot confirm nor deny because I watched the tape, so there's no audio, unfortunately. But maybe I'll go back and see if I can find that out.
We'll try and find out. Omaha steaks don't get old. We appreciate that. Try and have some fun with those reads as much as possible. The large Ziploc bags of spaghetti, we're mentioning that in the super chats again. I don't know, but I appreciate it. We appreciate it as always. And then one final question here. Common opinion is Josh McDaniels won't get a head coach offer again. What are the odds you think the Patriots prioritize paying to keep him to lower the OC change count?
He's not going anywhere. I'm sure he's making a good amount of money. He's not going anywhere.
I think so too. I do wonder if in a year or two, if they continue to have success, if another team wants to give him a chance and if he'd go or not. But I still think that if
he takes it, then he has not learned anything. You know what? Let him leave, because that man does not care about his own well-being. Like I would be stunned if Josh McDaniels says yes. I'm sure the league will ask. I'd be stunned if he ever wants to do that when you have Drake May in potentially like 15 years of being very, very valuable at what you do, especially.
It'll be. I always wonder because, on one hand, you get into coaching to be a head coach and run your own program, but he's also had the opportunities. It hasn't worked out. And right now, aside from the head coach title and truly running the program, he does have all he wants. He's where his family grew up in Westwood, Mass, and in this area of the world. He has a great quarterback, a young quarterback. Once again, he's just on the offense doing exactly what he wants to do. So aside from the fact that you're running your own program, I don't really know what the incentive is, but it'll be interesting to see if and when teams do go after him again, if they keep having success. But that's down the line. We're focused on right now, and that is the Patriots taking on the Texans this Sunday in Foxborough. So we will be here every step of the way on Patriots Press Pass. So if you like our content, rate, review, and subscribe to Patriots Press Pass here on CLNS Media. And keep following along. We'll have a show tomorrow. We'll have a show Thursday. We'll take you through the rest of the week as the Pats get ready to take on the Texans at 3 p.m. this coming Sunday. So thank you guys for tuning in. Taylor, good stuff. Thanks for giving us a preview of this Texans team. We'll keep diving into them as the week goes on. So until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you soon. Peace out, everyone.